Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Ahmed Babic, and I'm an Azure DevOps engineer. I started my journey with system verification in 2019 and currently working as a part of Azure DevOps team. System verification is a global quality assurance company specialized in advanced quality monitoring and analytics based on artificial intelligence. It also provides services within business analysis, test management, test automation, CI/CD, and DevOps. The company's customer satisfaction index scores 93%. As you know, this is our third session in webinar series, Unlock Your Potential with Azure DevOps. Today, we'll be talking about testing, a joint effort to ensure quality. The session will be performed by my dear colleague, Ayla Sokol. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. In case you have any questions regarding the topics that we will cover today, feel free to contact directly to me or bring it up publicly so everyone can see it. Please do not unmute, but all your questions put in a written form. Thank you. And now, without any further delays, we'll give a word to Ayla. Just one more reminder, this session is being recorded so that we can share it with our colleagues who could not participate today. Thank you, and let's switch to Ayla.
Thank you, Ahmed. I hope you can hear me well. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. My name is Ayla Sokol, and today I will be your presenter in front of our team. Today's topic, as Ahmed already mentioned, is connected to the quality engineering aspect in the Azure DevOps services. And we will talk more about what quality engineering actually is, what are the practices of quality engineering, some of the principles that we should also follow within our development lifecycle. And also we will show you how to use the Azure Test Plan feature within the Azure DevOps services to apply these principles in practice. So as Ahmed mentioned, all the comments, please leave them in the chat, and then we will bring them up at the end as well. So let's get started. Let me just shortly introduce myself. I'm from Sarajevo, and here is from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I completed my bachelor degree in electrical and electronics engineering. Currently, I work on completing my master's degree within computer science. And I have been employed in system verification since the beginning of 2019. And during this time, I have worked in a couple of different roles. Right now, my focus is on being a Scrum Master and an Agile coach, and also partially a DevOps engineer. This is the team that we have, a team of great people within my team currently, and it is Ahmed Babic, Bilal Bandic. They are both members of Azure DevOps team, and they work and collaborate with me on a daily basis. And also Henrik Selman, and he is our representative from the management side and sales perspective. So any questions that you have related to the sales perspective, you can contact Henrik for that. But all of us really do collaborate together continuously to bring this great value to our customers and then support them in their agile journeys and then implementation of the agile and DevOps practices. So here is the agenda for the day. We will start by introducing you into the field of quality engineering. So what is it, why is it important, and what are some of the key focus areas in the quality engineering? We will then continue on talking about how these testing practices look like in the Azure DevOps services and show you the overview of the test plan feature that is found within the tool. We will show you some of the good practices in the tool presented in the demo, as well how you can create some of the test plans for different testing purposes, how you can work with your requirements to test them out, or any other type of testing in case you have some. And after that demo, we will also conclude today's session and create a short summary and talk about perhaps the future plans as well. So let us start. When we talk about working on developing a product and the whole development process around it, in order to ensure that our clients are really satisfied with what we are delivering at the end, one of the main principles that we should think about is the actual quality of the product. So what do we think about when we say and when we talk about the quality engineering in general? Well, firstly, we think about integrating these different testing practices inside the agile methodology and including them inside our DevOps practices in the development. And any product of the value to us and our customers should be delivered with the quality aspect in mind. This quality can be included in different ways, such as creating some sort of quality reports on, let's say, how we conducted some of our testing practices and what our criteria was for those testing practices. And executing tests and working with testing is continuous for everyone, and it is a continuous practice in the team as a whole, and the whole team is responsible for execution of those practices, uh, possibly in the earliest stage of the development as possible. It is also a great practice to include, let's say, a quality aspect in your development. So as we mentioned, in the earliest stage possible, for example, by utilizing some of the unit tests within your code. So we hear a lot about, let's say, quality engineering and quality assurance, but we hear about them interchangeably. But what is the actual difference between quality engineering and quality assurance? And how do they relate? Well, firstly, the quality engineering is involved in all aspects of product creation. And what this means is that we are driving product with quality in mind from start of creation of that product. And we make sure that everyone within the product creation is involved in it with application of different testing practices. Quality engineering also puts criteria for the quality of product in all of these stages of development. So for example, you would have something for quality related in the design phase or in the development phase and in the validation phase. So basically the whole development process would make sure that there are that everything that we deliver is delivered with the quality. While in the quality assurance, we pay more attention on just the finished product, so just the final stage of validation of the product. In quality engineering, focus is on all teams involved in creation of that product. So they can be multiple of different teams. If they are involved in that one product, or if it is a small team, then the whole team, they are all involved in the quality of the product. And it is also important to provide really good standardized tools and make sure that everyone knows in which stages we would like to keep this quality aspect and things really flexible and agile when we are trying to test out our products in these different stages. So we wanted to include this slide as well because we hear a lot of misconceptions around the assumptions and misconceptions around the testing and making sure that the quality aspect of product is there. And these are some that we would like to highlight. So first one, and the most common one, we would say, is that testing practices are not necessary to have, and executing tests are not necessary that much. And even if we agree to have those kind of testing, then it is fairly easy to do so, and we shouldn't pay attention to it. Also, we hear a lot that it is the testing practices are not included in the projects as a whole and in the products development. and that stands together with not being necessary in the product. So perhaps this is the case when you talk about very simple things that need to be developed, and then we have a very short amount to develop it, and they are really easy and straightforward, so there is no need to check on them that much. This, even then, you would need to have some sort of a testing done, but not on that detailed level, let's say. But otherwise, are you certain that what you really deliver to a customer at the end works? If you have not tested it out along the way or created some reports on issues that you may have or still have within your product. There is no time for it, and we trust our development process more than we trust our reports, or even it is not prioritized by the business as well. So one question arises from this. Do you think that it would be better if we took more time to ensure that we are delivering the actual value to the customer? Or would it be better to deliver whatever and then for them not to be really satisfied at all because we missed out on some of the important factors along the way of the implementation of the products? It is separated from development team, and there is no need to create this traceability from the idea, the initial requirements, to the code, to the validation of it, and no reason to create some sort of a transparency on it. As we mentioned, quality engineering should be a part of the whole process. It is not just delivered as the end result, and that is what Agile stands for the most, making sure that what we deliver at the end of each sprint is from the actual value and is usable for our customers. Creating this traceability and being open and transparent about what we deliver is one of the keys to developing value and delivering it at the end. So we see that quality is important practice in product development. So what are some of these principles that we should guide ourselves by when applying this in the practice in an actual development process? So here is a visualization of important principles in quality engineering. Firstly, we should focus on creating the mindset that will guide a whole team into working with quality principles. So focus on enabling and improving development speed by, let's say, including the continuous integration, continuous deployment process within your software development. This will make sure that the whole team is included in that quality aspect as well, and it would be easier to do some testing practices along the way. Understand that quality is not a specific rule. A quality is a mindset and is a principle in every product that everyone should apply when working on it. So optimize quality, make sure that you understand risks that you are taking with each release or with everything that you do. Make sure that you have understood what are the risks within your product at each stage. Have time allocated to work on these testing activities as well. So try to understand needs for team members. Try to allocate enough time for them to work on these practices. So these are the mindsets. So this is something that our teams, our managers should guide themselves by as well. But how to apply this mindset in the practice? So we will work towards the automation practices. So we will try to implement some of the DevOps best practices or some of the rules, good principles within our projects or within our products. We will make sure to think about shift to left. So to think about how you can include this testing practices in each of the stages and as early as possible so that you do the development and testing in parallel, basically. Try to see equality as a built-in practice and make sure that it is a continuous and constant practice within your team. And also understand the responsibilities within the team and who is in charge of what testing practices so that everyone knows what they need to do and to make sure that they are focused. That is really the key, because we would like we would like team members to be focused on what they need to do within each of these stages. So all these practices and this mindset you can try to apply and enforce through some management tools, some software management tools or any other type of management tools where you would like to add some requirements to work with them along the way. In today's session, we talk about one of the management tools, which is called Azure DevOps Services. And that is one of the ways that you can implement these practices and try to enforce this agile mindset, agile methodology, quality mindset as well, quality engineering and DevOps practices within your products. And this is what we will start talking about right now. Before we jump into the Azure DevOps Services and how to use it, utilize it through your testing activities and for your testing practices, we would like to make sure that firstly we go through the terminology so that everyone is on the same page when we talk about stuff later on. So these are some of the definitions here. First one is the test cases. Test cases are there to validate a certain part of a component that we are delivering. Then we have test suites. Test suites are folders. They basically group these test cases into certain scenarios. For example, some test cases can have a similar scenario of execution and you want to group them in specific folder. And test plan is designated to define all these folders for certain test activities. So for example, you can have a test plan for, let's say if you want to test out in specific sprint, for example, in 2 weeks time, you can have a test plan dedicated for that, or you can have a test plan dedicated for release or for the automation scope or something along those lines. Work items are our deliverables where we define requirements, we define bugs or any other type of the work that needs to be done in products in general in teams. Configurations within tests, they are showing us variables in which we are executing our tests. So for example, you can have configuration, you can have a multiple of different browsers as a configuration to execute your testing. You can have different operating systems and so on. And finally, we have test runs, and they are the execution of tests. So test runs can be either manual test runs or automated test runs. So let us now go into details about the tool. Azure DevOps Services is a Microsoft created management tool for keeping a track of your delivery. It is used for different project management. It can be either software development projects or any other type of project. You can customize it per your needs. Basically, it is there to help you to work with the requirements to store code, to deploy to environments, and also to test out everything in the same way. So basically to enable you to implement these DevOps practices and agile mindset within your project. It is essentially, I mean, a great tool to keep an eye on the traceability and transparency and to collaborate among the teams and within the teams themselves. One of the features of the Azure DevOps Services is called the Azure Test Plan, and it provides support for all testing activities, starting from the designing phase, so designing the test cases, making sure that you design the test plan and etc., to the implementation and execution phase of these test cases. It has support for both manual and automation testing. So basically all types of tests that you can think about. A test plan combines three main artifacts, which we have talked about. Those are test cases, test suites, and test plan. When using Azure DevOps services for your general management of delivery within your products, a test plan is really a great addition to it, and it provides a strong baseline for making sure that we deliver a set of by set standards, by set requirements that we have. That means that this feature can help you out with overall test management. It can keep an eye on all the execution and history of the execution, create nice visualization, charts, reports, and similar. And you can add multiple of parameters, configurations, and so on. You can also use it for utilizing many different testing practices, as you can see here, for manual automation tests, user acceptance tests, exploratory testing, and unit testing, and etc. So before the demo, we wanted to show you briefly how one test plan looks like and what does it contain. So we will just brief you through this, like main stuff that are found here. We won't go into too many details around it. But basically, you can see in the left part here at the top that we have a title of the test plan. So this whole picture is basically one test plan. And this is the title of the test plan. I mean, test plan can be related to regression, to releases, to some sort of a time box interval in which you want to conduct your testing, sprints, increments, and so on. And you have a time in which you want to execute it in, and also some of the progress that you can see here for the runs that you have executed within that test plan. Then you would have a test suite folders where you organize and store your test cases. So these are organized by specific scenarios. So for example, this one that is opened, you can see here that it is pay scheduled bills, and it is opened here. So here is the name of the test suite. And this test suite contains different test cases for this scenario. So for example, for this pay scheduled bills, I would have 6 different test cases that I need to execute in order to verify that this is okay. These are the list of these test cases. And in the tool, when we click on them, we would open them up and see the steps for the test case, each of these test cases. Each test plan has these tabs, which are really important. First one is define, where we do the definition of the test plan. I mean, you define the order of the execution of tests, make sure that everyone is assigned to it, make sure that configurations are good, and so on. So whole test management. You can also add new test cases, add existing ones, and etc. You have an execute tab. This is where we do the execution of test cases. You have options for both manual and automation execution. And charts tab. This is where we can create the basically the charts of the progress of our testing. We also have other tabs such as offline test execution and some of these tabs that are helping us out. For example, import, export into the Excel, out of the Excel if you use the Excel sheet for some reason, filtering options and similar things. So there are different ways that you can manage the testing execution for certain requirements, be it either manual or automation, generally test management. You can either scope it for, let's say, to create a test plan for certain releases or regressions and similar, and you can create those test plans manually. So you go into the tool, create it manually, add test suites, test cases that you want per your need. But you can also manage it, which is a great feature here. You can also manage it through the Kanban board. So you have a Kanban board, you have user stories, features on the Kanban board, and you connect your test cases to those user stories through those features. And then the test plan would be created for you. Task plan is connected. In that case, task plan is connected to a specific sprint or increment. For example, you can use a task plan connected to a sprint, which would be a 2 weeks period testing. So everything that is connected to a sprint would be what you have added as a testing practices within that sprint. And for example, for a feature, it would be 10 weeks. Let's say if you work with features, as it is a case in Skilled Agile Framework, for example, it is generally 8 to 10 weeks that you work with implementation of these features. You would have a test plan for those 8 to 10 weeks to have everything that you have implemented for the requirements in there, basically. And good thing is that you can run these test cases in different ways. So you can apply different practices to it. And this is one of the ways that you can do it, as we mentioned, through the boards. So here, when we talk about the boards, we talk about the requirements, work items that we work with, and a lot of things that we work with are actually based from the requirements that we get from the business. So we want to make sure that it is followed through. And this is a great example of how you can do it. So in here, you have one Kanban board. In this case, it is a feature Kanban board. You will see in our demo how we have a Kanban board for the user story level as well. But let's say that we have one feature Kanban board, which is like this, and all of these cards are specific features. Each of these features, when you click on it, they will have a set of requirements and you want to execute them. You want to validate some of them. So you have this icon here on the feature, which you can see in the progress column. You can see the card and you can see this icon here, which will indicate that you have some test cases connected to that feature. So I have here test 1 and test 2. And I can see automatically the progress of it. So I executed it in my test plan, or I executed it somewhere inside the tool. And I can see, okay, that's the test 1 that is connected to this user story is passed. And test 2 that is also connected to this feature, is blocked, for example. Here you also have that it is failed. So this X icon means that it is a failed test case. Or once you validate everything and you want to close it out, you will see this green in the closed column. In the card, you will see this green mark, which will mark that all the tests have passed, which means that when stakeholder comes to this board, they don't want to go into the test plan, let's say, and see all the test cases and etc. They want to see that everything is found in here. So you can actually see it from the board itself. And in this way, they can see, okay, everything has managed, everything has been validated, everything has passed. Or they can see, okay, we have some issue here. Let me see what that issue is. And then he can go to the bugs and see what we are working with. So I will try now to show you this in the practice, in the actual demo in the tool itself. So we will go through the test cases, test case details, how to manage some testing practices when you do the requirement testing for user stories or features, how to create test plan from scratch and run these test cases, and as well as keep an eye on the charts and the progress and show it in the environment as well. So let me just now share the Azure DevOps quickly. Okay, so I hope you can see it. Just a short recap around what the features in the Azure DevOps services we have. So this is how, let's say, one sample project looks like. We just created it for these purposes, for the demo purposes. We don't have that much data here. We have it for you to show, for us to show to you how it looks like. We have these in the left part, you will have these different functionalities within the Azure DevOps services. So quickly, you have boards. This is where we do some sort of the planning, adding work items that we work with, refining them, planning, doing basically planning for the product and the execution of it and so on. Repositories are where we store the code for our products that we develop. And here is where we can work with the pull requests, create some branch strategies and security aspects of it, and etc. And make sure that we have the whole code management visible. Pipelines are there to help you to connect your code to a specific environment. So for example, if you have you want to deploy a code to production or pre-production or test environment and so on, you can integrate it here, create pipelines, and also integrate your tests within these pipelines as well. And it is really good visualization to see how it looks like. Test plan functionality, which we will talk about today, is a functionality where you can manage all your testing scope that you want to work with. And artifacts are there to help you store the packages that you connect to your pipelines and release to a specific environments. But let me now go through one case in the demo, which I think would be great to explain how you can conduct these tests, these testing practices. So let's say that we have a certain work item that we want to test out. So if I go into my board, and I would go to the boards here to open up the Kanban board in which I can see my requirements, in which I can see my user stories, for example. And this is my team name, which is, in this case, it is team 1. And in here, I can see that I have some certain user stories. And these user stories, basically, each of them has assigned to a person who is driving that user story forward. It has some tasks here that needs to be done, for example. But when I open it up, I also have a certain requirements that I need to fulfill for this user story to be completed. So this is, let's say, one component. In this case, it is, let's say, how to define work items. And this is from a training that we had. So for example, as a trainee, I want to learn how to define work items in the training so that I can start applying it in practice. So this is, let's say, one description of a user story. And we have certain acceptance criteria. Create presentation, add modules, module should have quiz created, and etc. And how do we validate that this is okay? So we have some presentation that we need to create. Okay, we need to test out that that is created. We need to make sure that all of these requirements are created and tested out in its essence for this user story. So if I close it, I want to test out this user story here. So I will click here on these 3 dots. And I have here something which is called add test. So if I click on add test, I can now add a test that is connected to this requirement. And then I can add my first test, I can add my second test, third test, or any amount of tests that I have. So let's say I want to test out, let's say, verify that a presentation is created. For example, I mean, this is just for the example purposes. And I have created my initial test. So this is the first title that I have for this test. I can add more tests if I want to verify something else. Let's say verify step by step rules. Let's say verify that step by step rules are in presentation. I mean, just example of it. So let's say we have 2 test cases that are validating this user story here. So I have connected it to this user story now. Okay, so now I want to see if this will be stored somewhere. So I want to store it somewhere. I want to define it. I want to store other user stories as well somewhere and define them. I want to execute them somewhere. And this user story in particular is worked within one sprint. This user story as well is worked within one sprint. Other user stories are worked within one sprint. So you would have these components worked within those sprints. So let's say my goal now is to store all the test cases that I have for the user stories that we execute within that one sprint, within those 2 weeks. Once I connected this test case to my user story, I have this button here, which is called the test suite. Test suite is automatically created in the tool. And if I open it up, so here it is. And I have that visualization that I shown you previously in one of the pictures. We have one test plan created. And this test plan, if I just make it like this, you can see here the title of it. So you can see here that it is created for the team 1, which is my team. It is created for stories, which are the requirements that we have worked with. And it is created within the PI2 sprint 1. So this is the sprint that I have that is connected to this test plan. This means that all of the testing activities within this sprint will be found here. So I will have all the testing activities here. And once I want to show that progress report to my stakeholders, I can show them this test plan here, and I can show them the report from that test plan and see, okay, in this sprint, we have executed this many test cases. We have this report here. These are how many bugs were there. These are how many issues we had, and etc. So you see here that these are the test suites. And you can see that the first one, which we have opened, is actually the name of the user story that we have, which we connected to test cases before. So it is this one, how to define work items. And we can see it here. So this is basically connected to our user story. And these type of suites are called requirement-based suites. So requirement-based suites are connected to certain to specific work items that we work with. And I can see here now that I have two of my test cases here. I have them in the execution. I can go into define part, and let me just open this up like this. So I can go into define part. I can create the order of them. So let's say I want firstly to be executed something else. In second order, I can do it something else, and so on. So you can change the order of them. You can add different people that needs to execute these tests. And for example, I can view the linked item here. I can edit these test cases, assign different configurations, and so on. So I have many different ways to work with them. So right now we have created the titles of the test cases, but we haven't really created what we are testing. So I haven't added any steps. So how can I do that? Well, I can open this test case right up because that is essentially the work item as well. So I can open this up like this. And I would now have my test case here. So this is how the test case looks like. It is currently empty. And I can add, it is in the design phase, as you can see in the top here. So we are still designing this test case. And I can add here now, let's say steps. I can add step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. So I will just quickly add step 1, add additional step 2, step 3, for example. And in the expected results, I can add step 1 completed, step 2 completed, and so on. So just as the example that we can use here, just to show you how you can do that. For each of these steps, you can also add different attachments here. So you can add any type of attachments that you want, image, some link, or something that can help you out to execute these steps. Another thing which is really good is that you can add different parameters. So sometimes you would like to execute some test cases for, let's say, I don't know, different parameters, different values. For example, for 100, for 1,000, for a million, and so on of something. You can add those parameters here. So you can add these shared parameters and add them here. And reuse them later on because they are stored within the tool. You can reuse them in other test cases as well in case you have some. Another important thing is that you have these tags here. You can add some customized fields. For example, we added here category test case. This is something which you can use to categorize, but you can customize these fields. So there is a way to customize what you want to add within your test cases. And in this way, once you categorize them, let's say I add some, I don't know, smoke test here. This is for smoke test. This is for some release test or something. I add some specific tag for test cases. You can reuse them later on. So once test cases are created like this in the tool, they can be reused again in other test plans, in other executions, and so on. So they are not really connected to the executions, and they are not individual elements. Once you create them, they are just there for one testing purpose and so on. No, they are reusable, and you can do that. You can use them all over again in other test plans as well. So in test cases, you have other fields such as summary, associated automation, where you would add the automation details here in case you have some automated. And you have other things such as links, attachments, and so on. So let me now just save it and close this test. I can do the same thing for the second test as well. So I can just click on it and add the steps as required. So, okay, I have created it and I want to execute it right now. So let me go into the execution file. And I have here a way to execute them. So I can execute them in multiple different ways. And it is really scalable, where you can basically enter, you can just click on the test case individually and add the execution results here. You can just pass the test, for example. I can click on these three dots and mark the outcome, let's say. Or I can run it for different versions of it. So I can use either manual tests application, which is the Microsoft application that is a test runner. These are the application that is created from the Microsoft. Or I can use the automated tests principle. So I just add it here. I select the build, release pipeline stage, and so on, and just run my tests within here, within this test suite, for example. And this is good because automatically my outcome of the tests will apply in this tool. So I don't have to go, I don't know, step by step and mark the outcome of each of them. A good thing is that you can mark the outcome for multiple of test cases as well. And also you have here run option, so you can run them in multiple as well. So when I mark the outcome, let's say I want to fail this test. When I mark the outcome, has this outcome shown in my board, which I created initially? Yes, it is. And if I go back into my board here and I refresh the page, here is the requirements that I was testing out. And I can open this up and see that I have verified this one is passed, this one is failed. Same thing as I shown in my test plan previously. And your stakeholders can see this view. So they don't really have to go into the test plan and see what you have executed and etc. They can see this view here. And then I can add bugs, for example, to this, and they will see the bugs that are found in this user story. If you have some end users or some stakeholders that need to do this execution of test cases as well, but they don't want to, you don't want them to interrupt in the test plan, they can do it as well. So you can involve everyone within your team, within the stakeholders, inside your testing practices. So you define the tests, You define what we need to execute, and then they can create the run here and execute from the board itself. So I can just click here and I can pass, fail test, block test, or not applicable, or even run test from the board itself. So I don't need to go into the test plan and do that thing. I can have a manager that can work with those defining test cases and what we need to test in all the development stages. And everyone in the team can just run tests from here. So that's really good practice, right? And it's really nice visualization of it. So let me now go back into the test plan. We have defined it, we have executed it. I want to see the progress of it. I want to show the chart of it. So I can just go into the chart and create some sort of the chart, pie chart, or any type of chart that I want according to my progress. So I click on the new. I click on any type of chart that I want to visualize. Let's say I want to visualize it by the test results. I will create a pie chart. And I can add the grouping. So I can add it by, let's say, the outcome. And it will show me the grouping of passed at failed and failed. And I will just click OK, and I have a chart here. And then this chart can be edited. You can add it to the dashboard, which is found here. And then you can show it to your stakeholders. So again, they don't need to go into the tool itself, into the test plan to visualize that. So that's great. We have created one case of the testing requirements. Is there another way that you can work with this? So sometimes you don't have requirements, you have some other things that you want to base your tests on. You really, you have, I don't know, some regression tests or test releases before the releases, which you want to scope in different ways. So what you can do is I can just go into the old test plan view. And I have here a list of all the test plans that were created within this project. So within this Azure DevOps Services project. I can go into mine in case I have some favorites or I have some for different teams and so on, or I can visualize all of them that are created in here. Here is where you can manage your testing for all different types of testing. So any testing practices that you have within the team, let's say. And I can create a new test plan. So I can just go into the test plan, add, let's say, test plan 1, connect it to the area path where I want that to be found, and connect it to, I can connect it to specific time box interval. Either, I don't know, I can connect it to the PI2, for example. I will conduct these tests in the PI2. And I just click on the create. And then I have this test plan created, so it is fresh. I don't have anything in there, and I can now add test suits. I can add test cases. I can reorganize my testing. And then what I do is I click here on the 3 dots. I can assign configuration on the whole test plan, or I can go into the suits and add different types of suits. Requirements-based suits, we have mentioned that they are connected to our user stories features and other requirements. We have static suits, which you can use if you don't want anything to be changed. So let's say static suite 1. And I can add any type of test cases in this suite. So I don't know, I can add a new test case, or I can reuse some of the test cases that I have. So I can add existing one, try to find it by querying. So I will just query what is here by default, but you can add any new clauses that you want to try and find what test case you want to add in here. So let's say I want to add this one. And I added this test case. I can now work with it, execute it in the same way that I did before. I can add other suite as well, such as the query-based. And the difference between static and query-based is that query-based is automatic, which means that once I set this query here, so if I set this query here, I have these two test cases. Anytime I add a new test case in the tool that will satisfy my requirements here on the query, this query suite will be automatically updated. So if I create a suite here, I have these two test cases. If I add into the tool new one that will be satisfying the requirements that I had initially, it will be automatically added. So I don't need to take care of it. I don't need to update it per the need. Sometimes you just want to have that one query based suite that will basically just update by itself and add test cases as per needs. And then I can execute it as well, create charts, create progress reports, and etc. So these were the ways that you can work with managing your testing. And a good thing is that each of these, you can see here the functionality that's called test plan. You have different parts here as well that you can use. So we haven't gone through them in details because the task plan feature is the most common one used. You have a progress reports where you will see the charts of progress of your test plans. You have parameters where you can add parameters. We mentioned there you can add different shared parameters and so on to reuse in test cases. You can add configurations to use in test cases and to keep an eye on the runs. And this is really important because you can go in there and see the history of your runs and go into each run and see the execution history of it. So that's really good. Uh, if you want to see the progress report, and if I go here, so for this test plan, I didn't do anything. I didn't execute it, so I don't have really any type of chart. But let's see if we have some other test plan where we have a different chart visualized. Okay, so this is a test plan which we created before. This was for the PI2 Sprint 1. And what we have is that we have some outcome trend here. So this is basically a progress report over some period of time. So I have here last 14 days, last 30 days, or I can add a customized date. And I can show this chart to my stakeholders, keep an eye on the progress report, go into some of the details for it, see how much have passed, how much has failed, if we have run or not run it, the count of it. I can filter it out by different priorities, testers, configurations, outcomes, and so on. So it's really nice visualization of the report, basically. And that would be all when it comes to the demo part. So let me just quickly go back into the presentation. So we have gone through all of these things that we wanted to show you, let's say briefly into the how it looks like in the Azure DevOps services. And to conclude today's session, we would like to note that this is the focus of today's seminar was more on test management practices and manual testing as such. There are other concepts within the quality engineering aspects, such as the unit testing and test automation and different practices within the test automation, such as UI and API testing. And these are all the things that you can implement within your teams as well. And then you can work with this Azure test plan to make sure to implement them as well. So just to summarize briefly, we should think on how to go from the traditional aspect of thinking what quality is and what quality means within the products, and to see it that the quality is the process, the whole process, and the development part of the product and delivering the product. And the mindsets that we should start thinking about and the practices that we should implement are based on the CI/CD, on the DevOps and the Agile mindset as well. And you can start by implementation of, let's say, your sprintly basis testing or increment basis testing or something along those lines to make sure that you have verified initial steps, at least, and initial requirements. And also you can use, in this case, the Azure DevOps services to use it as a guidance into the continuous improvements within your tool, within your product. So just briefly, we have some future plans which we would like to share with you. These are more on the webinar topics. So we would like to cover some topics related to, let's say, test automation or to unit testing, and how you can accompany it in more technical way within the tool. So the next webinar probably in this series would be even more technical aspect, and we would like to have it very soon during Q2. Also, we are open for suggestions, and feel free to contact us on any of our emails here, or if you have something that is of an interest to our sales or management part, you can contact Hendrik for sure on this email as well. Okay. We have come to the questions part, if there are some.
All right, thank you very much, Ayla, for a great session. Now we are proceeding with our questions and answers. So we have received a couple of them in the public chat, and a couple of them were sent directly to me. So we can bring it up. Let's start with the first one. What are the requirements from billing perspective to use Azure test plans?
So for the Azure test plans, we have you have licenses that you can buy. There are monthly purchases of licenses. I'm not really sure now how much. I think around $15 or so. That's one license, but I'm not sure. And it is on the organizational level. So basically, if you create this sort of a project and then you have one billing subscription, you can add licenses to there. There is also some free trial version as well for the Azure DevOps services that you can use and utilize to test it out, I think, initially.
All right, thank you, Ayla. Let's proceed with the next one. There was one question: which version of Azure DevOps do you use? I believe it's a little bit. There is a misunderstanding about the versioning. Can you put it in a nice words?
Just to clarify, this Azure DevOps Services is a cloud version.
Yep.
And it is updated continuously by Microsoft. So we don't handle any administration when it comes to the updates of the Azure DevOps Services, the cloud version. There is other version, which is the older one, which is Azure DevOps Server. And that version is on-premises version. And there is servers that are in the, let's say, organization that bought those servers, and they are working with them and so on, and you update those things. This one is the latest Azure DevOps Services, and it's updated continuously. We recommend this version because you don't need to work with maintenance or back maintenance of the Azure DevOps Services.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Ayla. Let's continue with the next question. How the automation test cases are mapped to the tool? Is there any required framework, tool, or something else? Can we?
Ben. Yeah. Hi.
Hello? Do you hear me?
Okay. Yeah,
Connection
I can
dropped
hear
for a
you.
second. Let me go back to this question. How the automation test cases are mapped to the tool? Is there any required framework or tool?
Oh, well, I mean, the automation, there is certain things that you need to do within, let's say, I don't know if you use Visual Studio and so. And for example, through the Visual Studio, you have addition for tests, which you can map directly to the Azure DevOps Services. And in the Azure DevOps Services, you create a test case and you map it to your code within the Visual Studio. So it is mostly done from the Visual Studio itself. I think we will create some sort of the presentation on that as well for, let's say, more of a demo for the test automation practices.
All right, thank you. We have another more technical question. We saw how test plan and test cases are linked to the user story when created from user story, but how to link created test plan to a user story? Can we showcase that quickly?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So one of our colleagues is interested how actually to link created test plan to a user story.
Okay. So you can just a second. Let me go back. So each of the user stories are connected to the test cases that are found in there. So if you go into the user story itself, you have here links. If you think this is the correct answer, I hope that's what you were searching for. But basically, in each of the user story, you have these different links. You have tested by link or features tested by link, where it is visualized which test cases are testing this user story. And you can add new links. So you can add here, I don't know, existing item, existing test case, or a new test case. You can even add other links, such as parent link. For example, here we have a parent work item. We have child work items, which are tasks for user stories. You can add some related work. You can add, for example, here you can add some development parts. So you have many different types of links. And inside the work item is where you visualize all of the things. So if I open this up, I will have all these links created here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can we see from a test plan, how do we actually connect to a requirement-based test suite?
Yes.
That would be quite nice. Thank you.
Okay, so this is one of the test plans that I created. Let's say that I want to create a new requirement-based suite. So if I go here and I go into the new suits and go into the requirement-based suite, I will have here similar concept that I had, which was related for visualizing the query. So I want to try and search for my work item that I want to connect this to. So I will just run this query because we have certain work items here. And for example, I have here, let me see if I can connect it to this work item. So how to plan work items. And I want to find this quickly. Okay, here it is. So this is, for example, the work item that I want to connect my test suite to. So I will just create suite here. And now I created that suite, that's requirement-based suite. If I add any type of test case, so let me see, I will add something existing. I will just run this and add this one as well. So I will reuse test cases. So I will add it here. So this is my requirement-based suite. I added one test case to it. I didn't execute it, so it is in active stage yet. If I go back into my board and refresh it, I have it here. So this is how I added it from the test plan perspective. So here is the list of the test cases, and then I can add new test cases if needed.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was great. Let's proceed with the next one. What is the main difference between Azure DevOps and Jira, Confluence, Bamboo? What are advantages and disadvantages?
So Azure DevOps Services provides a really great transparency and collaboration, and you can store everything within this tool. I was working in Jira for some time in one of my projects, and we needed to use additional tools for testing perspectives. For example, I needed to use, I don't know, TestRail, for example, to connect it to the Jira. And I didn't really have this visualization. I needed to go into the work item, see test cases. Then if I want to see the test case, I need to click on it and open up in the TestRail and etc. So it was pretty not that good of a transparency, let's say. Also for the code, I didn't really, you couldn't really just go into the codes here and see how the code looks, or I couldn't go into one of my work items and see the pull request or see the branch or see the where it has been released and so on, because here inside the work item, in each of the work items, you have these parts here, which are deployment. So if I connect it, for example, to the release, I will see it on the work item itself that it has been deployed to a test environment, to pre-prod, to production environment, or any other environment. I can connect it to my code. So here is in the development part, for example, I have it in the code. I have my test cases connected to it. So basically, if I don't know, if I click on this one, I will see the commit here. So it's really straightforward and really transparent. And I can just easily keep an eye on the whole project as such.
All right, thank you very much. I believe that our colleague is pretty satisfied with the answer. We got it thumbs up in the chat. I believe this was all for today. I think we have covered all our questions. So in case you have anything else later, you can always contact me or Ayla. We will be more than happy to help you out. You will all receive the recording of this meeting after we conclude it. So in case you want to reflect on something, do a follow-up on this, you will be able to do it through the recording. Thank you once again, and see you next time in one of our next sessions.
Thank you very much and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.